Hello, I'm Dr. Roger R. Elmer, Advanced Neurospinal Solutions. I am a chiropractic physician, a fellow in the International Chiropractic Scoliosis Board, and a diplomate in the American Board of Chiropractic Neurology. And so I'm here to talk today about adrenal fatigue. One of my patients asked about that. What is adrenal fatigue? So adrenal fatigue is the adrenal glands are above the kidneys on both sides, and neurologically you control them. The right side controls the right gland and the left side controls the left gland. And the adrenal system is a part of the hormonal system. We call it the HPA axis, the hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis. And the hypothalamus is the system that links the brain to the blood system, and particularly the hormonal system. And when we're driving the system and we need some hormones, if the brain wants to do something, a certain level of activity, it can only get so far. When it wants to go faster or harder with the physical body, it will begin to cause a release of hormones. But before it does that, the brain causes releasing hormones to be put out. Those releasing hormones cause the pituitary to release, to put out stimulating factors. They go into the blood, they follow around to the gland, and they cause the release of the hormone in question, whether it be a hormone like thyroid, or whether it be testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, glucagon, from the pancreas, insulin, whatever the case may be. Those things are controlled ultimately up here within the brain. The sympathetic versus the parasympathetic, we've talked about that before, and we've done a video. We're going to do another video here very soon. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight system. We tend to call it that, but it really is more about activity. It's about getting stuff done. And we use it all the time. And it's okay to use that fight or flight. We tend to think of it being, facing a Bengal tiger or an angry wife. Oh, did I say that out loud? That gives great fear, and all of a sudden all the hormones start pumping, and all of a sudden you want to run. And so most of the time we're not facing a Bengal tiger though. And so we're dealing with a situation where we live in a world where our environment causes us to live at a higher level all the time, and we never get to recover. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and recovery system. It's about the digestion, it's about the sleep, it's about the recovery. And so if we're running the sympathetic nervous system all the time, we're burning ourselves out neurologically, but we're also burning it out from a hormonal point of view. We're telling it constantly to do more and more and more. One of the indicators we see too is we'll see what we call a hemisphericity, where one part of the brain is running lower than the other. And we'll notice that the right side, like let's say the right side of the brain is running low and the frequency is low, we'll notice that the right ankle is starting to swell a little bit compared to the left. What is happening there is where the parasympathetic nervous system, or we call it the IML within the spinal cord, is not being inhibited, so we are putting too much pressure on the blood vessels. If we put just some, it's going to improve the blood flow, kind of like putting your thumb on a hose to water your garden. But if we push too hard, we can actually choke that blood flow. The condition that we call hypersympathetic atonia is such that we are actually choking it. And because of that, we don't get what we call venous return. The veins don't return it. The blood, the arteries pump the fluid out, but the veins pump it back. And so we're not able to move that stuff back, and fluid pools. After a long time of doing that, we're running that sympathetic nervous system so hard, the brain starts to activate the HPA axis to cause us to run that sympathetic nervous system through the hormonal system. When that happens, when we start to release from the right suprarenal gland or the adrenal gland start to release those hormones in. As we release those hormones, now we'll notice that we can run high at a higher level, but we notice a little bit of swelling in both ankles, worse on the right. That hypersympathetic tonia has gone from a right-sided sympathetic nervous system problem to a systemic, across the board sympathetic nervous system hormonal drive, and that's why we're seeing the choking on both sides. And so we still need to get that right side of the brain driving higher, and as we drive that right side of the brain higher, it causes that system to drive the reticular formation, which inhibits the IML and allows for that sympathetic nervous system to back off and allows the parasympathetic to move forward. And so that's the activity of the brain that makes that happen. But the adrenal glands, over time, when we are pushing them harder and harder and harder all the time, at some point the adrenal glands become tired. The nervous system is pushing them so hard that they run out of steam, and now all of a sudden we're getting a problem with we can't do anything. We're weak and tired all the time, and we go through a process where we go from a laying to a seated or a seated to a standing position. We can't control the increase in blood pressure to make up the difference in going from either a laying to a seated or a seated to standing, which we should increase the blood pressure so that we don't pass out. Well, the physiology of that is when you stand up, your blood gets sucked into your shoes. As it gets sucked into the shoes, it activates little sensors in your carotid arteries that cause you to increase the blood flow, and it causes you to increase an output of adrenaline and corticosteroids to cause you to push that back up into your head so you don't pass out. We call that Ragland's sign. And it's a common sign in adrenal fatigue. Now, the problem with the current therapies are, number one, in medicine there aren't really good answers. In medicine, crossover into alternative cares, we tend to give adrenal extract or adrenaline, and that is an immediate help to the symptomology, but over time it doesn't solve it. In fact, it creates a new problem because the brain, as we're supplementing it, just like in supplementing other hormones, the brain decides, well, I guess we don't have to make this anymore. We're going to take a pill form instead, and it forgets how to make it. And that link between our limbic brain and the hypothalamus, which is at the front of it, and the ability to do releasing factors and stimulating factors, and therefore release that adrenaline, or if this happens with any hormone like thyroxine or any other hormone, if we're supplementing it, the brain forgets how to do it. There are other ways, functional neurological approaches, to stimulate those things, to make the brain go back to making those hormones, even in the presence of autoimmune disorders, including like Hashimoto's and thyroid, and that there are ways to push it. Are there conditions that have become so bad that they may need supplementation? I agree that is possible, but we find that out when we've taught the brain to go back to its job and it still needs a little help. We'll give that help, but we want it to be minimal. We want the brain to do all the activity. And so here at Advanced Neurospinal Solutions, we have that kind of approach. We also put the structure back together so that the brain functions the way it's supposed to, and anybody, particularly that has severe breakdown of the structure of their body, whether it's scoliosis or past degenerative processes within the structure or past severe injuries that they're trying to compensate for, that causes the adrenal system to have to try to push the system hard enough to make up the difference. And so we put that structure back together again so that so that it takes a minimum of effort for the system to run, but it also drives the brain the way it's supposed to, so that it's putting out its hormonal system. It with the left side of the brain is driving the norendocrine, which is the hormonal system, and the right cortex is driving the neuroimmune system part of the system. So, but it's maybe a long explanation, but it gives you a more clear vision of why do so many people have issues with adrenal fatigue, and what kind of solutions really address the problem and not just the symptomology. Thank you.